Boys, what is going on? It is Rye, coming at you with the KC Cup tier list. Now, I wasn't going to make this video. To be honest, I haven't had a whole lot of interest in the KC Cup, especially after the whole cheating thing. And that's still going on. And that's another video for another time. We'll get into that probably next week. But here we are, KC Cup tier list. I had a lot of requests for this, and I do want to preface this video by saying, listen, when it comes to ladder, when it comes to KC Cup, there isn't that much data you can pull. Unlike the power rankings, you can just pull from all the community tournaments. That's simple. That's, you know, we know what the tier list is in tournament play. It evolves every day, and we know exactly at the end of the day what that tier list looks like. For solo queue and KC Cup, it's a little different. KC Cup, it's all best of ones. It's all very rapid, so the meta can change day to day to day. So this is supposed to give you kind of a snapshot going into day one, and then just depending on what elo that you're in or what DP point you're in, you'll have to, you know, adapt your deck moving forward. And then just also for anyone that wants to play a rogue deck, this is probably kind of, you know, what you're going to be looking at. So the sources that I did use for this KC Cup is taking a look at the, funny enough, the Konami Invitational tournament that they did, which is essentially just a whole bunch of best of ones. They were best of fives, but you could side deck into any deck that you wanted. And that pretty much, I mean, outside of D-Hero, was the metagame. So so it's actually pretty funny. Konami provided some level of data for us. So I took that tournament into account. I took into account some other things, some biases. I'd say this list is probably 40% statistics, 60% my own biases. So please keep that in mind, that this is not the end-all, be-all of tier lists, but it is my opinion on the metagame and what you'll probably be facing if you're going to go into KC Cup, or if you want to pick a deck, what'll have the highest success rate in KC Cup, if you just wanted to pick a standard meta deck. So, getting into it, tier 1, actually, before we get into it for tier 1, the reason that you see these decks specifically on the tier list is I think this KC Cup will be an interesting one in the fact that it'll be mostly monster-based effects that we'll be dealing with. Back row, because of decks like Harpy Lady and D-Hero, which in my opinion are the two best decks of our metagame right now, these two decks eat up the back row when it comes into this game, right? Harpy Ladies, obviously they have Harpy's Hunting Ground. They've also started including MST to counter D-Hero. There was also DDD, but we don't talk about DDD anymore. They're dead as fuck, all right? We don't talk about DDD anymore. They're gone. But you've got them, and you got D-Hero, who has searchable MST. These two decks are probably going to dominate the actual overall player count. I don't know about top 100, but actual player count in KC Cup. So chances are back row base decks, Shiranui, Ritual Beast, Trimid, these decks that have done well in past KC Cups, probably you won't see them do too much this KC Cup, I would imagine, based on what I'm seeing. So Harpy Lady, D-Hero, they're tier 1 for kind of setting up the stage in terms of how many people are going to play these decks and how well they'll be doing. Just the raw back row removal, I think it'll be a monster effect based metagame. Now, I will also say that this tier list can go for ladder as well, because I know a lot of people have been asking for a ladder tier list. You can just look at this tier list as well, because KC Cup is the ultimate form of ladder. So, moving on to tier 2, Melodious. I don't think I gotta explain why Melodious is so good to anyone. Melodious also gets a little bit of an increase because they're not gonna be facing as many random decks that'll like beat them, right? Like Noble Knights, all that shit that was beating them, that's all gone. The side deck is now gone, so things like Diffusion, stuff like that, will pass as well. So if people just aren't packing it out to Melodious, they're going to be able to steal a lot of wins. And I think it is the third best deck after the Harpy and D-Hero kind of lineup run through the metagame. I do believe Melodious is the third best deck to be used. In fact, they'll probably win a lot of games against D-Hero because D-Hero likes to run like those side deck cards to out the Melodious. So we'll have to see what D-Hero decides to do in that matchup. Thunder Dragons I actually have as tier 2. I think Thunder Dragons, their two big weaknesses is they're extremely bricky and their side deck, or the side deck kills them, right? Necro Valley, Shadow Imprisoning, all that. There's so much anti-Thunder Dragon hate out there. So I think in a metagame where you're playing a bunch of best of ones, you're playing a bunch of different decks, your opponent isn't ready for you, you're not playing back row, you're playing a bunch of hand traps, which none of these decks do, you know, especially well against, because Gaia is out of the metagame, thanks to Dlvl. I think between that and you being just fully monster effect and having, you can play as many games as you want, so you can kind of counteract bricking, right? Because, listen, if you brick 1 out of 5 games, that's rough. If you brick 1 out of 1,000, or if you brick a couple times out of like 1,000 games, it's going to be hard to see any results. You know what I mean? Of the bricking itself. So Thunder Dragons, I think they'll be doing fine. I think they'll be a nice tier 2 pick. This was actually the deck that Zade King won the Konami Invitational with, and that was infested with Harpy Ladies. So I think this will be a good pickup for anyone that wants to play the Tier 2 KC Cup. I don't know for how many days. Again, these are all kind of first day picks, and you'll just have to kind of adapt the meta as we go, because if by day 3 we're all main decking Necro Valley, you know, obviously you can't do that anymore. And then for my Tier 3 picks, I've got TG and I've got Magnets. Again, 2 monster effect reliant heavy decks. Tech Genus barely plays any back row. The flight control, this is specifically the flight control version. You've got things like the Quarion, the Black Rose, all these things are really effective against the metagame. You have to put some respect on TG. The only problem is they lose to common things like Book of Moon and Chalice, and you're going to see a lot of Book of Moon and Chalice in this tournament. Those will, again, Chalice, monster effect metagame, you're going to see a lot of Chalice. Book of Moon, it just came out, free to play. You're going to see a lot of that, especially the first stage. Definitely going to see that in the second stage. So that is kind of why it's in Tier 3. It just has a lot of generic outs that everyone's going to be packing for other decks anyway. And they'll just kind of be caught in the crossfire. But still powerful in their own if they don't run into those issues. Should be no problem for them. And then finally, Magnets. Magnets, Destiny draw decks, always going to do well in this metagame. And, you know, the back row that they run are things like Super Team Buddy Force Unite that refreshes themselves, or Powerful Rebirth that they just use it when you go try and pop them. So Magnets will be fine, I think, for this metagame, but they won't be... They're a little bit on the slower side, too. In KC Cup, you typically want to win fast, lose fast, until you get to the higher tiers, if anyone's aiming for top 10 or anything like that, and that's when like stall decks and stuff kind of come into play. And that's it. Honorable mentions: Fire King. Fire King might be okay. I'm kind of scared to play Fire King in an MST meta though, because you'll lose your field spell a lot, but there is no Gaia to stop you, so that could be a pretty interesting option to play, especially if you get higher elos. You might be able to just stall and keep people from stealing your points. And that's really all I have. If you're planning to play a rogue deck, just remember that this is going to be a pretty heavy monster effect. You know, KC Cup, the 2 best decks entering it, even if they're not in your mind the 2 best decks, in the community's mind, they're the 2 best decks because they are going to be the most played. They're the most played in tournaments. They're the most played in the popularity ranking after Blue Eyes. We all know Blue Eyes. Listen, I don't have to rant about Blue Eyes again. We all know there's going to be a bunch of Blue Eyes in Stage 1, and they disappear overnight when we hit Stage 2. No one plays Blue Eyes in Stage 2. So, there you go. Best decks hit dual level max. Best decks to do well in Stage 2. Thank you guys for your support. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you want any other kinds of KC Cup videos or any other types of analysis videos. I'll be more than happy to bring them to you. That's it. Take it easy, boys.